actually trade in foreign exchange. This one, at what rate will be more appealing? Sometimes we come back to tell you that we are giving you the interbank rate. So what they have agreed among themselves. The Bank of Ghana is complaining about how Barclays might have abused that particular process and actually find them the 4.6 million in this particular case.
And this is the new meaning of the word frivolous I found. I'm reading from the Ghana Interbank Forex Market Conduct, point 4.2. It's actually captioned frivolous quotes. Dealers and brokers are strictly prohibited from making frivolous quotes. These are quotes which have no intention of honoring and are designed merely to mislead market participants. So what the bankers will tell you is that it means they display one rate. When you go inside, they have another rate. It's as simple as that.
So it's like promising to marry the woman and refusing to marry the woman.
Do you know that is actually against the law and you can sue someone for that?
Yes, breach of promise.
Yes. So Barclays Bank.
I hope everybody, including your very good self, takes note. But let me not sway. I'm still talking about something in this particular area. Now, the Barclays Bank issue is one of the issues in the banking and financial sector. We know on the other side, there are also other issues, including the fact that we have lost almost 186 of our financial institutions being the only ones standing today. Now, 70% of them have gone down. There are 544 of them, and we now have 186. Even out of the 186, they include both the microfinance and microcredit institutions. The group that represents the microfinance and microcredit institutions says they have welcomed the decision. They only hope that the Bank of Ghana will not make the transition very difficult for them to sustain their business. One of the key things they want out there is something that would embolden the customer to believe that there are still credible microfinance and also microcredit institutions in the country. And that's what they want the Bank of Ghana to do going forward. Mostly operators in the field tend to fight against the BOG's decisions when it comes to which one to collapse, which one to turn into whichever decision. But this one, they say, well, some of us are still standing, but we want you to do the transition in a much more wonderful way so that we can have a better system to run. Related to that is also the claim by the BOG that, one, there won't be massive job losses. Two, it is being managed in a proper way so that you don't feel it. Now, today, if you're counting the weekend, because this list was released on Friday, today will be the third or fourth day. So, Eric Nipa, the receiver, has 6 days to produce that report, based on which other activities can also happen going forward.
Exactly. It's also important that we remember that the Bank of Ghana has told all of these institutions they can still come and seek redress in their office if they feel the terms under which their licenses were revoked are unfair. So we are waiting to see who can have this verdict overturned, if I can use that expression. But let's go to Canada.
Yes, so the president is in Canada and he's telling Ghanaians living in Canada that he does not think that the perennial dredging of watercourses and drains to deal with the perennial flooding is a prudent use of resources. So he's advocating that whilst government is determined to build the infrastructure that would deal with the perennial flooding and then eliminate the perennial dredging, the Ghanaian citizenry must change their attitude towards waste management. That if people continue to drop litter in drains, and we have seen images of women pouring buckets of litter in drains when it is raining, the government efforts will come to naught.
Time and again, Ghanaians, we want this, we want that. But the attitudinal change that would enable us to be able to bring value to these demands, that is always left out. Up till today, as the Odo River is being dredged, there are still people who, when the rains come, think that the easiest way to deal with dirt in their houses is to throw it out into the gutter center. Those things have to come to a stop. We all have to speak to each other in Ghana to bring those things to a stop. Because if we don't, no matter the investment that we made, at the end of the day, we'll be back to square one. And I'm not prepared to spend your money in that way again.
President Akufo-Addo speaking there in Canada. It's interesting though, guys, isn't it? Is it attitude or its leadership and attitude? We've had this conversation on so many occasions. Today, when the mayor joins us, Mohammed Nieje,
Any more friend?
Please, if you have any questions for the mayor at all, send us a message on 0244-340-437. We'll be finding out what the plan is this year to make sure we don't have another June 3, unfortunately. Anyone?
Well, I don't know about that, because if you remember that there are some slabs at Abofu. So part of the concrete walls from the Odo River that flow is from Santana to New Achimota. There are slabs there that are sort of holding the Odo River in place, and apparently 10 of them have fallen down. So the first 7 fell 3 years ago during the June 3rd disaster, and 4 more 3 weeks ago. Now, these drains were constructed by the Kufuor administration, and they've been weakened because they cannot contain the pressure that is coming through, and also because there's a complete lack of maintenance. So according to residents in that area, the river was not overflowing until the slabs broke off. And now that the slabs have broken off, when it rains, that area is flooding really, really badly. Apparently, they've sent letters to Okankwe North Municipality, but they haven't received anything yet. And we know that we just got approval for the $200 million support from the World Bank for GARID, the Greater Accra Resilience and Integrated Development. So it's interesting that the president is talking about this because we know that we have received some money to do that kind of work, and then we'll see how it goes. In relation to what Malik said about pouring rubbish and stuff, you remember that there was a video that was going around about the woman who was pouring. The AMA has issued a statement. They're asking that if you know who she is, please let them know so that she can be punished. And because apparently we have laws, we do have laws about refuse dumping, but they're looking for her. They're condemning the action, and like the president said, asking that we do not pour refuse down drains. So if you do know this lady who poured a bucket of rubbish into the drains when it was raining, the AMA are looking for her.
In other words, if you see something, say something.
I guess.
But I wonder how many people have been arrested for doing same in the spirit that the AMA has.
Well, in times past, the AMA has arrested people who have engaged in these violations and been sent to the sanitation courts. Many of them have been fined after they have been convicted.
There's the prosecution of 450 persons from January to May this year for various sanitation offences.
In the AMA alone?
Yes. So 450 people.
Interesting. So we are going on now to another part of the country.
Yes, this place, Saboba, that's where the vice president has actually been meeting both the concumbents and the chokosis in that particular conflict. According to him, and then let me quote him, he says that, my brothers and sisters, it is time for us to put down the guns and live together as one people in peace. And that's the call from the vice president to the people there. He actually met specific groups, chiefs, relevant stakeholders, the community, youth leaders, and also people who will be very instrumental to the call for truth. I've heard Kenneth Festus about just say that if you want a better roadmap, one of them should include making sure that the long-standing call for paramountcy by the concumbents are actually considered one way or the other. And secondly, improve the security, their resource and everything on the ground to make sure that they're able to do so. There's an old suggestion that they should put permanent military people on the ground, a base there probably, so that when there is any problem, they not only that in the northeast region, so that it can actually quell any problems coming up in the future.
And Daniel, in that Saboba area where the vice president was, the chief of Saboba, and I'm talking about Bowen John Mathieu Sakujim the fourth, assured the vice president that the fighting is over. And you have to remember that Saboba is one of, even though it is not the epicenter of the recent conflict between the Konkumbes and the Anofos, it's also not spared because the epicenter is Chiriponi. But note that it used to be one district, Saboba Chiriponi. Remember those days when we had all these twin districts in the area, Savulgu Nantong, Gushogu Karaga, Gukpegu Sabonjida. So Saboba Chiriponi was one district. Then 2012 it was divided into two, Saboba district and Chiriponi district. Now in these two districts, the Chiriponi district is where the Anufos are the majority. In the Saboba district, the Konkumbes are the majority there. There are 8 communities of the Anufos located in the Saboba district. That's where the chief was telling the vice president that the fighting is over. The people themselves have realized that the fighting has not helped their development in this area. Therefore, they have come to an agreement that henceforth they've ceased the fighting. They now have to work towards lasting, sustainable peace in this area.
That's a breath of fresh air in this saga, if I can use that expression. There are more serious words that I didn't want to use. But anyway, anymore, there are some teenagers who are smoking.
Yes, and it's very, very
13 to 15 years.
13 to 15-year-olds, yes. So that's the Global Youth Tobacco Survey. This is 2017. They've released a report now. 8.9% of JHS students are using tobacco products. 5.3% of that are girls. 23.1% are exposed to secondhand smoke. And we know that passive smoking is actually even more dangerous than actual smoking. Now, some of the reasons that have been cited are the fact that cigarettes are quite cheap. So you can get one stick from about 20 pesos to 80 pesos. So it's very, very easily accessible. And also, people are not selling to underage people. So 71.3% of those underage children who went to buy the cigarettes did not have any resistance at all. So they were able to. Now, according to Tobacco Atlas, if you increase the price of cigarettes by 10%, there's an 8% decrease in sales amongst the youth. So the solution seems very easy. It's just about raising the price. At the moment, we have an excise tax of 13.02%, which is 56% below the WHO benchmark. And cigarettes are costing us 97 million Ghana cedis each year in healthcare and indirect costs.
You know what? The National Health Insurance Authority has already called for a sin tax. That's a tax on products like this, which cost the nation more when it comes
high
to
sugar.
healthcare.
Yeah, remember that in other high sugar products.
Exactly.
As
So
well.
maybe we should consider that if, of course, our government is amenable to that. But let's move away from smoking. And the EC has suspended the limited voter registration.
Yes. The Electoral Commission yesterday issued a statement which was signed by Sylvia Arno, who speaks for the Electoral Commission, saying that the limited. That's what she said. She was asked a specific question.
Okay.
Do you speak for the Electoral Commission? She said yes.
Okay.
Of course.
She's back.
Then MFA then asked the question, are you the communications director? And she said, I speak for the EC for now.
I see.
So she signed a statement which said that the EC, on account of a case which has been filed by one Umar Ayuba, seeking to injunct the process, which was scheduled to take place between 7th June to 27th June, they have decided to suspend the process. Note that Umar Ayuba filed a substantive case saying that the EC, by deciding to do this limited registration, to limit it to only district offices and to do it online, is a violation of its discretionary power, and therefore he wants the process to be stopped.
Okay.
Now he's gone to the Supreme Court asking that an injunction be imposed or be placed on the process which the EC was supposed to embark upon starting from next week. Now, you have to note that there is always this contention whether an application for injunction should operate as an injunction, or to the extent that the application has not been granted, you can go ahead and do whatever you want to do. There are several schools of thought. There's one school of thought that says, look, once the application has been filed, the intention to place an injunction on the process has been made clear, and therefore any law-abiding institution should not proceed to do with that act which the application is seeking to injunct. Another school of thought says no. Once the application has not been granted, you are allowed to so proceed with your process and wait until a court of law says stop. The Electoral Commission has taken the first school of thought, says once Ayuba Umar has gone to the Supreme Court seeking to injunct its processes, it will cease until further notice.
Well, of course, because the processes could be so long that by the time the case is heard and the application is granted, the limited registration exercise itself is over.
But our history teaches us that when it comes to electoral matters, the courts have been very activist. They've dealt with matters expeditiously, in order that because they know these processes are time bound. Because note that this limited registration exercise was part of preparations that would lead to the referendum in December 10th this year, that will eventually lead to the election of these metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives. So if they delay with the process, it's going to have a cascading effect on all of those processes as well.
Interesting one. Thank you very much, Malik. But cybercrime, you guys don't know we lost $229 million to cybercrime between 2017 and 2019.
Yes, and actually the cyber community, the country is actually saying that in the last 2 years, you put them in dollar terms, we are looking at almost $200 million in this particular case. But that's not the most important part, according to them. The most important part is the credibility of the state, and that we are risking being banned again because of the activities of some people in the country. Now, what they are really saying is that there are some who wake up in the morning, go to some of these units where money is actually transmitted from elsewhere to this country, and some people who work in these units, be it banks, be it just Western Union or any of the other groups in this case, go there, they aid them when they know that their transaction they are engaging in is frivolous. Indeed, there are so many white women, and one of the ways they do this is the romance fraud. So the white woman seeking love will be deceived by a certain person here in Ghana, pretending to provide it, and in exchange, money will be given to the people. Some will say they are family members who are dying, and all of the other stories. What the cyber community is saying is that help us track the people because you live with them. Because you see the kind of big cars they drive, predominantly Benz. I don't know why nowadays, but anyway. So you see the kind of cars that they drive. You need to make sure that you help us deal with them and get to the bottom of the matter so that our collective state is protected.
Now, interestingly, 40% of cybercrime losses, Raymond, in 2017 were money stolen from banks.
Yes.
So
About $28 million stolen from banks.
Apart from romance fraud, money stolen from banks is also very important. It's also something we must look at. And 90% of these monies were stolen by their employees.
I see.
Yeah, this is from the cybercrime unit of the police. It's something that we must really take seriously. But we're wrapping up soon. Half of HIV patients have boycotted the antiretroviral.
Yes. Alarming figures. The acting director general of the Ghana AIDS Commission, I'm talking Chiremi Etuahini, says that out of the 335,000 HIV population in Ghana, only 113,000 are on antiretroviral treatment.
Do we know why?
There are two things. The larger majority of people are in denial, according to Mr. Tuahene. The people are in denial that they carry the virus. The other thing is that some other persons, and remember we did this...
herbs and pills.
Absolutely. They move away from the ARVs and rely on herbal medicine. This is the reason why this is the case. And Mr. Tuahene is saying that this is a very, very dangerous situation because some of the herbs are not proven to be efficacious enough to deal with this, and they cannot. And even the producers of the herbs themselves say that the herbs are not a substitute for ARVs.
The producers of some of them, because some people stand in their cars and they say that it can do anything.
But they are scary figures.
Yeah, but really, I think that the FDA must also begin to crack down a bit harder on this. Because if you look at the effects it had on these persons featured in that documentary, one died, one was paralyzed, and thankfully one met Prince early and started getting better. So
can we arrest the people who stand in these cars and purport to have what they call it?
Shouldn't they be? Should we be asking, can we?
I'm talking about citizens arrest. So you and I mean, I patronize the public transport system a lot. So if I get into one, I find that I can actually arrest the person and hand them over.
I don't believe
I think he means Uber. I think he means Uber.
You see, Raymond, you see that you have allowed that point to dilute,
self-proclaimed socialist
to dilute the argument you were making. Anyway, we're moving on now, and we're going to the online news review. It's brought to you by Zenith Bank in your best interest and Goil Good Energy. Make your day productive by relying on quality fuel from Goil, your 3-time CIMG Petroleum Company of the Year. Goil Super XP and Diesel XP are additive to enhance strong engine performance and prolong the lifespan of your vehicle. Above all, you are guaranteed extra quality with a fuel analyzer from our mobile laboratory van. Get your money's worth every day by buying fuel and lubricants from any of Goil's over 360 service stations nationwide and experience good energy. Buy Goil, grow Ghana. Goil Good Energy. Goil Yenara Yedia. Now go lights with Zenith Bank and have dinner on us at the plush African Regent Hotel. To enjoy this offer, simply use any MasterCard to make a minimum purchase of 500 Ghana cedis on the Zenith Bank POS as the African Regent Hotel and be rewarded with free dinner or a discount of 100 Ghana cedis on other meal options. Visit the African Regent Hotel today. Use any MasterCard or on a Zenith Bank POS and have dinner on us. Go light with Zenith Bank, pay light. Zenith Bank, in your best interest. MyJoyOnline.com has charismatic churches kicking against proposed law against fake churches. This is a release that was put out by the Ghana Charismatic Bishops Conference. It says that an attempt by members of parliament to legislate against fake pastors and churches amounts to attempt to control religious beliefs. Interesting one there for MyJoyOnline.com. There's an op-ed here. Straight from Edwinology's lab. Only the filthy rich are allowed to be filthy. Interesting one on sanitation there. And DJ Switch is making us proud as she spoke alongside world leaders at the world's largest gender conference. Listen.
I want to share some 3 keywords. TLC. Allow us, we the young ones, to tell you our dreams, our needs, our wants, and also the challenges we face regarding quality education, good health and well-being.
Can she be my role model? DJ Switch, you're just great. We'll take these important messages when we come back. There's more. Stay with us.
Good energy.